Hello BSS, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here then just welcome. Hi, my name is Brenda. I do paranormal videos here on my channel, so if that is something that you are interested in, please consider subscribing down below and turn on your post notifications so you do not miss when I post another video like this one. Now with all of that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into today's video. Alrighty guys, so as you can see by the title, today I'm going to be reading to you guys 3 terrifying Reddit stories that I found while I was, scrolling through Reddit as I do. And I'm really excited to share these with you guys. I always love a good scary story. I was gonna do a subscriber's scary story, but I actually don't have enough, so just a quick little plug here. If you can send in stories to me for future videos on my subscriber scary stories, please send them to my email beyondbs@paranormal@gmail.com. I really appreciate it because I am basically almost out of stories, so yeah. And then other than that, I think we're just gonna get right into the first story here on Reddit, and this one is titled "The Little Girl on the Phone." A few years ago, I was awoken one Sunday morning by a phone call. It was a little girl, I'd guess around 4 years old. "Morning, Granddad." I laughed. She sounded sweet and then gently explained to her that she dialed the wrong number. "Oh," she said, before hanging up. A few minutes later, the phone rings again. "Morning, Granddad." I laughed again and apologetically told her that she dialed the wrong number again. "Are you coming, Granddad? What time are you coming? Hurry up, we're about to get started." She was absolutely bursting with joy, and whoever her granddad was obviously a very lucky guy. It sounded like there was a birthday party or something going on. Still laughing, I tried to explain her mistake to her and said that obviously I'm not her granddad, before saying bye and hanging up the phone. I lay in bed laughing. A minute later, the phone rings. "Morning, Granddad." For the 3rd time, I explained I'm not her granddad. "You are my granddad, silly," she said with a funny tone. She thought I was her granddad playing a trick on her, and she thought it was funny. Again, I explained that I'm not her granddad, at which point she drops the phone and runs into the background. I could hear her in the background saying, "Dad, Granddad is playing tricks on me. He won't talk to me." I could hear that she was getting slightly upset at this point. Then a man picks up the phone. "Dad, is everything okay?" the man says. So I, still finding the whole thing funny, explained to the man that his daughter has simply dialed the wrong number a few times, and it's all a big misunderstanding. Then he says in a concerned tone, "Okay, Dad, are you at home? Stay where you are, we're on our way over." Now he thinks I'm his dad. So again, not laughing anymore now, I explain that I'm not who he thinks I am, obviously, and that it's just the wrong number. What he said next scared the shit out of me. He said, "My name. I'm really worried now. We'll be over in 15 minutes. Don't move." At that point, I just hung up the phone and lay in bed wondering what the fuck was happening. They never called back, and I assumed I'd just been pranked by a friend or something. Over the next few days, I asked everybody I knew to own up to the prank. Everybody swore blind that it wasn't them. Not only was this girl convinced that I was her granddad, but the man also thought I was his dad, and also said my actual first name. Obviously, coincidences happen, but this was just weird. So a few days later, still puzzled, I thought I'd just ring the number back and see who answered. The number wasn't in use. I just got a dead tone. Weird, huh? I think I was called by a grandkid in a parallel universe or some shit. And judging by the sound of her voice, the parallel me was one lucky guy. What? Oh my god, this one was actually really good. I have like a couple of theories for this one. So for me, while I was reading this, I was thinking that maybe he forgot, like maybe he had like dementia or something, and he like he wasn't aware that this was somebody. Like, I thought this might be like a fictional kind of story, obviously, because if the person writing it is writing it, that means that they know who they are and they know that, you know, they're nobody's granddad. That would have been a pretty cool story if it was like, well, not so much cool, kind of sad, because obviously if he has dementia, that means that he forgets things, and that's not fun. And but that's like one of the theories I was having while I was reading this. I was like, maybe he just forgot who he was, and he forgot who his grandkid was or his son was, and he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't have grandkids, you know, like that kind of thing. But that other theory that he put down on here, that it was like a parallel universe kind of thing, that would be insane. That would blow my mind, literally. And especially because he called the number back and it wasn't in service. And I don't know, unless this was a very elaborate prank where they had like a burner phone or something and then they got rid of it, disconnected it, and then they were like, oh, this one, probably one of the best pranks ever. And if it was, then honestly, kudos to them, because that probably would be the best prank ever. And it's kind of harmless prank too, except it would like mess with his mind for the rest of his life, especially because nobody told him. If it was a prank, nobody told him, and here he is writing about it on Reddit. Okay, I really enjoyed that one. That one was really, really good. Okay, now let's go on to the second story. Okay, and this one says, I think something tried to lure me into the woods tonight. And they say, I can't sleep at all since this happened, and I'm honestly not sure who else to share this with because I think I'll sound crazy. But I have to get this out there because it's been running through my head and I'm so chilled and mortified. I live on this big piece of sort of small farmland with 2 homes, the house my husband and I live in and the house that is owned by his grandparents a short walking distance away. We have a lot of woods surrounding our land, and we get a lot of woodland animals that come through our yard a lot. It's one thing I really love about living here. There's a groundhog family I've got to watch grow up that live by one of our sheds, that mind their own business and don't bother any of the small crops my husband's Nana grows. Anyway, our dogs kind of just know the territory and walk around freely between our 2 homes in the large field. I guess you could call them farm dogs, but they don't really do anything. My dog is a 3-legged 15-year-old Chihuahua that manages to get around better than me somehow, and Nana's really fat beagle who would lick you to death. We're also dog sitting my mother-in-law's big dog for the 4th of July weekend since she's going to be somewhere with lots of fireworks. He really doesn't like them, and he's familiar with our home. So last night, I came out of the bathroom and the big dog started freaking out, like whining, howling, kind of stomping his feet like he wants to show me something, if that makes sense. This isn't really unusual for him because he gets pretty mouthy when he wants outside. So I started going towards the door, which then he started gesturing with his head towards. So I opened the wooden door before our screen door, and he just froze in our kitchen like a statue. My dog then came up behind him and froze too. They both stared directly at me and turned their heads towards the door in sync, like they were gesturing for me to go outside. It was so uniform. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it just felt so wrong for them to do. But at the same time, I assumed maybe there was a skunk outside or something. I went out onto the porch to see our grand neighbor's dogs sitting happily on our porch, which made me relax a little. There were very distant sounds of fireworks, so I thought maybe that's what our dogs were on edge about. Then the fat beagle on the porch did the same thing, looked at me, nodded his head towards the woods like a suggestion. I noticed he was sitting uncharacteristically still and wasn't panting and snorting like he usually does. I walked to the edge of the porch and looked around for a bit. Eventually, my eyes landed at this one spot, a perfect hole between the trees that allowed me to stare back deeper into the woods a little bit. And in that spot, I saw a pair of eyes open and blink at me. The rest is kind of a haze. I just remember thinking, you need to go to the woods, over and over again, while urging myself not to do it. like I was having a battle with a rope pulling me. It suddenly looked like there was grass that was laid perfectly for me to walk on, like I could point out spots that had been tread on by feet before. The best way I can describe it is like that one Junji Ito story, I'm not sure what that is, about the fault where people were being lured into their holes. It was like there was a path made for me to walk to this pair of white eyes staring at me from the woods. My husband noticed something was amiss, I guess because he heard the door open and wasn't sure where I was. I always tell him when I go outside to read/sit on the porch for a while. And I just kind of heard him behind me go, "What are you doing?" I remember saying, "I'm just looking." I specifically remember saying that. I would bet money on it that those words left my mouth. My husband kind of started getting worried and started guiding me inside. But I remember saying, "I'm just looking." He finally ushered me inside and shut the door, turned around wide-eyed and kind of questioned, "You do not need to go out into the woods." I was really confused. From what I remembered from his perspective, what he should have seen was me standing on the porch staring into the woods. I never mentioned anything about walking out there, just had the sensation that I should move. It was then that he told me that apparently I kept looking out like I was in a trance and saying different variations of, "I need to walk out into the woods for a little bit." I have no recollection of this at all. I've had weird things happen to me before, but this truly fills me with dread. I don't understand what happened, and I'm honestly really frightened about any of us going outside alone for a bit. I really feel like there's something trying to lure us into the woods or something. I don't like that at all. Oh my god. I definitely would not be stepping outside at night ever. Like, even to let the dogs out, I'd be like, "No, you guys are gonna stay here. I'm sorry, you're gonna have to pee on the floor or on a pad or something." Because that is so terrifying. That legit blew my mind, the way that she thought that she was just saying that she was just looking out into the woods, but the whole time she was saying that she needed to go out into the woods. I can't even think of what could be luring her over there or for what. Like, especially if she has never, I'm guessing they have lived here for a long time, and if this has never happened before and just out of nowhere she starts seeing this thing in the woods who's basically making a path for her to come out into the woods for who knows what. Like, I wouldn't want to know. I would try to forget about that and be like, okay, that never happened. We're gonna forget that there was anything in the woods and we're just gonna ignore it, because I feel like that's honestly the best policy when it comes to this, is if you don't let it get in your head and you pretend that everything is fine, they can't get to you, because it probably, whatever it was some kind of evil thing, because that's what it felt like. It didn't feel like it was trying to do anything good, luring you into the woods, obviously in the middle of the night, right? So I feel like when it comes to those things, it's best not to let them feed from your fear, and it's best to just ignore whatever that was. That was terrifying, honestly, truly. That actually kind of scared me, especially because I didn't mention this, but it's midnight and I'm by myself. Everyone else is asleep, and I'm the only crazy person sitting here in my room reading these scary stories before I have to go to bed in like an hour. Yeah, I love that for me. Alright, let's get on to the third story, you guys. And third and final one. You guys know the drill. I'm sorry. Okay, stop. Don't stop complaining. I'm sorry, I know. 3 at a time, okay? Otherwise, I run out of stuff to film. I'm sorry. Alright, so this one's titled "A Call from My Sister." And it says, "My older sister is a thru hiker and goes backpacking often. We grew up in Appalachia, in a very remote area. Growing up poor, we spent a lot of time camping, and now that we're older, she lives closer to home and regularly goes camping with my parents. We've had our fair share of bear and wildcat encounters, but nothing like this has happened before. Today, I called out of work with a stomach bug. I woke up from a nap and my sister texted me asking if she could give me a call. I live about 5 hours away, so I immediately said yes, fearing it was an emergency. When I answered, I could hear her footsteps, very fast and very hurried breath in the phone. She said that she was in a ridge taking photos of a cave system she found near a large rock formation. When she made it to a clearing, she heard a man call her name. It echoed through the woods. It was then that she reached out to me. While I was talking to her, I could hear my dad's voice in the background. She said that she was still an hour from her camp. When she said she was alone, I felt the iciest feeling go down my neck. I asked her what the man's voice sounded like. She paused and said, "It sounded like several voices at the same time, but the loudest sounded like Dad." I stayed with her on the phone all the while hearing something that was trying to sound like my dad. He's a lifetime smoker and very tall, so he has a low, booming voice that I have always found comforting up until now. When she got to the campsite, I told her that I was hearing it the entire time and thought he was there with her. She laughed and thought I was trying to tease her. But once she believed me, we were both rightfully spooked after that. My dad is very much alive and well. Does anyone know what entity would do this and how she can protect herself while she's alone in her tent tonight? Oh my goodness. Girl, anytime I hear like stories about something mimicking someone's voice, I literally just like get chills, because that's like one of the most menacing and terrifying things that any kind of entity can do. Because honestly, like how can you even like outrun that or like avoid that? Because in your head you're not gonna immediately jump to being like, oh, it's something pretending to be like whoever, like my friend or my mom or my dad, you know? That's not something that pops into your head. So it's such like what do you call it? It's such like a manipulative form of like mind fuck, because you can't even try to protect yourself from that. Because honestly, I guess it depends on how well you know someone's voice, because obviously she said that it was kind of a sound like if somebody was trying to mimic her dad, but obviously it wasn't nailing it. There was a lot of different voices coming out of this being, but obviously the loudest was that of her dad's voice. And honestly, I would feel the same way. I feel like I would never be able to hear their voice the same way again. I would always think it's some kind of like trick from whatever was out there in the woods. And honestly, I feel like I could say that it was some kind of like skinwalker or something like that, but I don't know. It literally could have been anything. It could have been any kind of paranormal encounter, but it's all I know is that it was terrifying. Hopefully her sister was okay during the rest of the night. I honestly don't even know how she was able to stay in her tent for the rest of the night. I would have packed up my things and drove back home, because there's no way that I'm going to sleep knowing that I encountered some kind of entity in the woods on like a hike, and then it followed me throughout the entire phone call, you know, with my sister. I would be out of there 100%, because as soon as I feel like obviously the sister who was on the phone with her, she was waiting until she got back to the campsite to let her know that she heard her dad's voice in the background the whole time. And obviously she was alone. She had told her that she was alone, and she's like, oh hell no, because she was hearing him, like a version of him in the background, and she had just thought that it was just him walking or hiking with her. No, I hated that so much. That's so freaking creepy. And I don't even know how people go hiking alone. Like, not only do you run the chance of like maybe possibly running into danger just from real life things like bears or coyotes or another human being who's up to no good, but you also can have encounters like this, you know, where something unknown is in the woods and you just happen to come across it. Oh, I cannot run that risk. I can't go anywhere by myself. I don't know how people can go hiking especially by themselves, because you could just get hurt and nobody would know until it's been too many days and they're like, okay, she's still not back, or they're still not back, something's wrong. But then you're just waiting. If you're hurt out in the woods, you're just waiting for days until somebody's like, it's not normal anymore, But anyway, that one was a really, really good story. All three of these stories were actually terrifying, and I usually try to kind of skim through the stories, that way I know if it's a good one or not, or I like look at the upvotes and see if it's gonna be a popular one, because usually the popular ones are not always because the stories are good. Sometimes it's just they just get traction, but I usually go through and skim through them, and then I remember just from the titles of all three of those stories, I was like, oh, these ones are gonna be scary for sure. But yeah, guys, that is going to be it for the stories for today, or tonight. I really hope that you enjoyed them, and before I do end today's video, today's comment shout out goes to this person right here. Thank you so much for leaving a nice comment. As always, I really do appreciate it, and it really makes my day. And if you want to be the next comment shout out, all you have to do is leave me a nice comment down below, and that's it. And also, if you made it all the way to the end of this video, make sure to leave a phone emoji, since we had a couple of stories where it was about phone calls. So leave a phone emoji in your comment, that way I know who stayed all the way to the end. And if you did, just know that I really appreciate you and I really love you, because sticking to the end is not something the viewers usually do. So I really do appreciate it when I see that you guys stayed all the way to the end to watch. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching once again. Hopefully I will see you in my next video. Don't forget to stay safe and be kind. Bye bye.